Hi, welcome to my video. My name's Dana, or Mimi as my grandkids call me. And today I'm going to can a baked bean recipe, which I got from Carol, the thrifty chic housewife. It's supposed to be better than Bush's baked beans. And I read through the recipe, I read through several, and this one was the one I thought would be the best. So we're going to go ahead and make them up, and then we're going to pressure can them. Everything that is a low acid food must be pressure canned. And in Michigan, we do it at 10 pounds of pressure. To that part, we'll cut out and I'll bring you back and show you the final product. But first, we're going to get started with making them. See if I can turn this down where you can kind of see, maybe a little further down where you can see what's going on with what we're making. The ingredients call for first your beans. And I did do my beans. I chose Great Northern beans, and I used 4 pounds, which I put in a pot of boiling water. I brought it up to a boil, covered with at least 2 to 3 inches of water. And as soon as I brought it to a boil, I let it boil that way for about 3 minutes, and then I shut it off and set it on the back burner and let it sit for about an hour. That's the quick way to do it. You can soak them overnight. I've done that before, but to be a little bit quicker, we went ahead and did the quick soak method. After that, you strain them out or drain them in the sink. Get fresh water. You don't want to use the bean water. Beans are hard on your tummy, so some of the stuff that comes out when you're cooking them and letting them set, you want to just pour that down the drain and use fresh water. So then you put the pot back on the stove and you cook them for about 30 minutes in the fresh water. And then I went ahead and drained them again, so they're all ready to go into my jars. So while we're waiting for that part, my pressure canner, which is heating up on the stove, you'll have to forgive me. This is my first video, so I'm learning. But there's my pressure canner. It's a Presto pressure canner that has a weight and a gauge. And I have inside of it about the amount of water that it calls for with my canner. You always want to follow those directions of how much water they say to put in yours. I only have probably 3.5 inches of water in mine. That'll be enough for me to pressure can the beans. So to get started on the sauce, while that's heating up, I am going to mix the following ingredients, and it's going to be apple cider vinegar, a cup of onions chopped real fine, and then we're using liquid smoke, which I just like the smell of this itself, so I know it's good in food, but I love that. Ground allspice, dry mustard, black pepper, salt, tomato juice. I used red gold. The reason is this is not made from concentrate. I'm sure the other ones are fine. I just prefer the fresh squeezed that's not used from concentrate. And we have molasses. So everything's ready and set. Oh, and also a 32-ounce can. Well, it calls for a quart of tomato sauce. I have this can that I picked up at Meijer's. It's only 29 ounces, but that's close enough for me. And then also, we'll be putting in brown sugar. So I've got this pot here that we're ready to use. Let's see if I can get it a little closer to the pot. So the first thing is it calls for 2 quarts of the tomato juice. And I'm just going to use this 2-quart pitcher because these are not quart-size cans. These are only 46, not 64 ounce, which is fine. I'm just going to pour it into my 2-quart pitcher. And then we will go from there with the next can until we get our 2 quarts to put in our little Dutch oven here. So there's one can. And then we just need enough out of this one, which I'm going to shake really well because it is squeezed. We're going to go ahead and fill it up to the 2-quart line on the pitcher. If anybody is as old as me and you remember drinking High C out of the can as a kid, my mom always put one large hole in it and then one smaller one for the air so it will pour out easier. You want to do that. So there's the 2 quarts of tomato sauce or tomato juice. And then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients to that. So first she has the quart of tomato sauce, which is going in with the juice. Make sure I get all of that out of there, since it is a little shy of 32 ounces. Then the next thing she has is the cup of chopped onion, which is going in. Then we have 2 cups of brown sugar. I normally pack brown sugar when I use it. That's how I was always taught. But she says not to pack it, to just loosely add the 2 cups. Get the onion out of there. Well, I don't want onion in my brown sugar for sure. So we're going to get our 2 cups of brown sugar. Right now, I have 2 kinds of sugar in my canister because I normally don't care if it's light brown or dark brown, but I happen to have light brown on the bottom and then just dark brown on the top, so that's what's going to come out first. And we'll just level it off like you would if you were getting out regular sugar or flour. I don't mind if it's a little more because I like them sweet. I would probably add some sugar to it later on when I actually bake them. Then next going in, we have a 1/2 cup of molasses, which I didn't pre-do this, but it only takes a second. Comes out pretty quick. And that's about almost just what I have. So there's the 1/2 cup of the molasses. And a lot of times when I'm baking my beans after I open a can, I usually add molasses, brown sugar, mustard, ketchup, whatever I feel like adding. But hopefully I won't have to add too much, if anything, to this. It should come out tasting pretty good without having to do too much to it. And then next is 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. So we'll get that up, shook up a little bit. 2 tablespoons. 1, 2. Okay, next is a 1.5 tablespoons of the liquid smoke, which we have here. I don't know if you're getting that. Let's see, I should back up probably. Like I said, I love the smell of that. It's going to taste just like barbecued baked beans. Just a hint of smoke in the back there. Then we have 1 teaspoon of ground allspice, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, 2 teaspoons of ground mustard, and a teaspoon of salt. And I don't know if I mentioned that, but the liquid smoke was a tablespoon and a half. And I know that's kind of hard to measure. I happen to have a set of magnetic measuring spoons that does have actually a half tablespoon on it, so that was easier for me to do. Okay. And then, let's see, we got all our spices in there. Yep, we've got tomato juice, 2 quarts, 1 quart tomato sauce, 1 cup chopped onion, 2 cups brown sugar not packed, half a cup of molasses, 2 tablespoons apple cider vinegar, 1.5 tablespoons liquid smoke, 1 teaspoon ground allspice, 2 teaspoons ground mustard, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of pepper. So I'm going to just go ahead and whisk that together a little bit, get my powdered spices mixed in there. And we'll turn that on and let it simmer for a bit while our canner is heating up. Looks good and it smells really good. Let me give you a peek inside there. There it is. Quite a bit. We're going to do our sauce separate from our beans. Okay, we're back and we've been simmering our sauce for about 30 minutes. It's pretty good and hot. My canner is just about ready for jars. And over here in the sink, I've got my jars. They've been all checked for cracks. Any chips on the rims of them, everything's fine. Washed them in soapy water, rinsed them. They've been also in the dishwasher, but they didn't stay hot enough in there because it's been a while since I did that. So I'm putting them in the hot water now to keep them warm because we're going to put the warm stuff on them. We want to start, you either have to start your jars cold in a cold canner, or if you have with cold food. But if you have hot food, put them in a hot jar and a hot canner. So you want to keep consistent with that. And I don't know if I can bend this down far enough. We'll see. I can't see what I'm doing here, but I think you can see the jar, which we're going to go ahead and first put in our beans, and then we're going to go ahead and put in our sauce. See both of the things that are going on at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to scoop the beans into my jar. And like I said, they're going to absorb liquid. While they're canning, they're going to cook some more. These are kind of like an al dente. They're not, when you soak them and get them ready for canning, you don't want them to be soft and get mushy in your canner. So I've got beans that are still firm but will soak in this liquid that we're adding to it, the sauce, and cook while it's in the pressure canner for 90 minutes. I'm going to add my sauce. You can use the wide mouth jars. It might be a little easier getting them out, but I usually don't have a problem getting stuff out of the small mouth jars. So the end of a plastic scoop or spoon and get down. Oh, you could hear that one. Just go down there and kind of make sure there's no air trapped in the beans or in the liquid in the bottom. And after having done that, I can see that I need to add more sauce, because I brought that level down a little bit. And I'm going just below the rim where the screw band goes on. If you can see right about here where that is sticking out, that's about 1 inch. And I'm going to go ahead and do the inch. Then I have a little vinegar. And I'm just going to wipe the end or the rim off to make sure there's nothing on there preventing us from getting our seal. No sticky, sugary, anything on there. Take one of my lids, put that on, put the ring on, fingertip tight, and go ahead and put that in my canner. And our beans. Fill it up to 2/3 or maybe 3/4, just under 3/4 full with the beans. Get a little more in there. I don't think I'm going to get 7 quarts, but that's a few more than what I wanted in there. So I'm going to shake some of those out. I'm going to go with about 2/3 full. I'm going to add the sauce, which I try to stir every time. Make sure onions and everything are in there because they kind of float. Get the sauce in with the beans. And that look really good. It smells so good. And just to show you, this is about 1 inch of headspace. Now, using the plastic handle to go in and debubble, it's going to probably bring that down just a little bit, which it did. You can kind of see how far down that went, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more to get to my inch of headspace. And get my paper towel, wipe off the rim with the vinegar. That's just white vinegar. Get one of my lids on. One of my rings, fingertip tight. And that will go in my canner. What I'm going to do is go ahead and, oh, somebody texted me. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my jars and see how many we get, and then I'll bring you back. You don't have to watch me do all the jars. I won't bore you with that. But basically, it's just going to be the same thing over and over until I run out of beans. Okay, we did get 7 jars, 7-quart jars. We have a canner load. Hope I've got that centered so you can see it, but they're down in there. Water's heating up. I'm going to go ahead and put my lid. We're looking for now thing right here. You can see it also has a gauge. It's got the 10 pounds of pressure, which is for Michigan. That's my area. Canning pound or canning weight is for your area, depending on if you live up in the mountains or if you live like way down low. We're 10 pounds here in Michigan, so I know that's what I have to get mine set at. So it's got the gauge there. It's got the little vent where we're going to look for steam to come pouring out of that, like a steam engine. It's going to really shoot through there and get air out of the canner. Once it starts going at a steady stream, then we'll set the timer for 10 minutes and let that vent before we put on our weight. For mine here in Michigan, Southwest Lower Michigan, this is a 10-pound, 90-minute session of canning once it gets up to pressure. So first we're going to look for that steam to come out of that vent, and I'll bring you back when it starts doing that. Okay, I'm going to show you here. It hasn't been that long. First, this little vent that popped up was sputtering a bit, which is okay. But once that happened, the steam started really coming out the top of this vent. So we're going to go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes. We're going to give it 10 minutes to vent and remove as much air as it can out of that pot. Once that happens, we're going to drop on our weight. Okay, timer's gone off. 10 minutes it's been venting. This is my weight. I'm just going to set it on there. This is slightly rocking weight when it gets to the higher pressures. Like I said, I need to go to 10 pounds of pressure, so I'm going to stand here for just a minute, wait for that to happen. And when it gets to 10 pounds, then I'm going to adjust the temperature on my stove down from, it's nearly on high for the 3-burner size. I will probably, because this is the stove cooks hot. So I probably will lower it almost to low and see if it stays around 10 pounds or over by maybe a pound or so, just to make sure that it's at the proper setting. And then once it gets to the 10 pounds, we can begin timing the 90 minutes that it takes for the quarts. Okay, we're at 10 pounds actually. We're just a tiny bit over. And that's okay to be a little bit over, but not under. And I did turn down my heat, so that should come back down to 10. I ended up putting mine down on between low and simmer because, like I said, this is hot. This burner is hot. And I want it to drop down to 10, but not under it. So I'll have to monitor it. That's my responsibility, to make sure it gets to 10 and stays there. So we can set our timer for 90 minutes. And it's the pressure canning is started. We just leave it in there for the full 90 minutes. And then I'll show you what we're going to do after that. Okay, so we're back. The 90 minutes is up. You can see the weight is rocking just a little bit, and it maintained about 11, 12 pounds of pressure. So now we're going to go ahead and shut it off. And we're just going to let it sit here now and cool down naturally. We're not going to vent it. We're not going to attempt to cool it down any quicker. You just let it do it naturally. And so when it hits 0 and it's all cooled off, we'll come back. Okay, so after my canner had sat, I took the lid off of it and I let the jar sit in the hot water for about 10 minutes before I took them out. One of my jars did break during canning. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes jars, when they're used over and over and over, eventually they wear out. They don't last forever, but that's okay. It just got a little bit of bean juice on the ones that were in there, but they're all fine. So I ended up with 6 quarts, not 7. I cleaned my canner out, carefully took out the glass, washed everything up. However, I'm not going to wash these jars until tomorrow. These are going to sit here for 12 to 24 hours before I touch them. Just let them set. They're not in a drafty area. I would have normally put them on my island to sit, but it's still a little chilly outside. It snowed today, actually. We had a couple of 80-degree days, and then today it snowed, so it's a little chilly over that way. I don't have the ceiling fan on. Everything is just sitting here on the counter and will stay just like they are till about 12 to 24 hours. Then I will wash my jars thoroughly on the outside with soap and water, get them cleaned up, wash the lids off carefully, and then I'll remove the rings. I don't store any canned goods with the rings on. I don't want them to rust to the jar. And after I get them all cleaned up, they'll be ready to go in the pantry. But they turned out really nice. The color and everything is just great. So out of 4 pounds of beans, dried beans, I ended up with 6 quarts, would have been 7 quarts of baked beans. And that's a really good savings. I like to can. It's one of my favorite things to do. Even with a pressure canner, it's one of my favorite things. You can can anything just about. Go by the Ball Blue Book. Oh, there we heard the seal. We love that. Oh, another. Yay. So if you buy the Ball Blue Book, it will give you recipes. It will give you guidelines on canning, all the information you could possibly want. But if you have questions, you can put them down below and I'll try to get back to them and answer you about anything. But don't be scared of pressure canning. I've done it for years and years and years, and it's actually a lot of fun. And I hope this inspires you to maybe do a little canning. If you start out with water bath canning, that's fine too. Just remember, anything that's a low acid food has to be pressure canned. I also can meats. There's several things that I like to do and keep on my pantry shelf, especially now. Prices of groceries have gone up so much. I try to look for savings anywhere I can. So I hope this encourages you to think about what you can do, what you can, and give it a try. It's really a lot of fun. You'll enjoy it. Coming up in another video next week, I'm going to be canning, more beans. I'm going to make a bean soup. It's a recipe that is supposed to taste a lot like Campbell's, which is my favorite, and I've been buying that at $1.79 a can and eating it. I enjoy that one often. It's like the one soup I really like. So I'm ready to try this recipe that's going to taste a lot like that, a copycat recipe. We'll do that next week. So come back and join me at Mimi's Little City Homestead, and yeah, we'll talk to you then. Thanks. Bye.